Buongiorno a tutti quanti e benvenuti alle nuove interviste di Red Lab Gallery. Io sono Alessia Locatelli e come chi ci seguiva già prima sa che queste interviste nascono e vengono fatte all'interno di una progettualità che oggi vede finalmente anche una mostra che sarà a settembre al Comune di Milano. Con noi oggi abbiamo Marianne Bjørnmyr, che è una fotografa e autrice norvegese. Hello Marianne, nice to meet you.
Hello, good to meet you.
Marianne dal suo studio di Oslo ci sta regalando il suo tempo per questa intervista. Marianne sarà una delle artiste che porteremo a settembre all'interno di questa doppia mostra al Comune di Milano, Municipio 3 e all'interno di Red Lab Gallery, e oggi ci parlerà un po' del suo lavoro e di quelle che sono le progettualità che vanno a comporre il suo modo di essere fotografa. Qual è l'idea che porta Marianne Bjørnmyr ad avere e strutturare un nuovo progetto e come inizia naturalmente un concept quando si approccia a un nuovo lavoro?
Over the years, I've been doing a lot of research and reading, and I keep going back to my notebooks and I pick out interesting details that I have for some reason not included in previous projects. So most of my projects have in common that they touch upon the impossibilities of the photograph. And my interest always starts in looking at the traits that the photograph inherit or lack. Most projects I think about and develop over a very long period of time. But at the same time, some projects start with one simple idea where I work to find the best possible way to illustrate the message behind the idea. So I usually work back and forth between the concept and the ideas for production for a very long time before I actually start producing the work. But at the same time, I love the final stages where I can experiment with the production of the work. So I'm currently trying to allow myself more time at this stage because I think some of the most exciting things happens at this stage in terms of...
Quanto è importante questa fase di ideazione e organizzazione del progetto, ma soprattutto quanto ci vuole per approfondirla, se ad esempio compie dei viaggi per andare a indagare come la location, piuttosto che se legge dei libri, quindi all'interno del progetto cerca di darsi già delle connotazioni su cui lavorare. E soprattutto qual è la fase di documentazione, come si documenta e come struttura il materiale una volta che torna a casa.
So the planning stage is usually the most important one for me as an artist, and it's also what takes the most time. So I can spend months or even a year planning and researching before embarking on the actual photographic process. So I usually research and look for materials and traces that give me information in libraries, articles, by talking to people, and then I collect everything that might be of interest and make my own archive. And I start very broadly by making sure that I'm not missing anything before I narrow it down eventually. And so when I travel for a project like to Iceland or Ascension Island, I work very focused on the trip. And even though the areas will be unfamiliar to me, I have a good notion of what I'm looking for before I get there.
Okay.
Then, of course, the development of films and the scanning and the editing when I get back is the most exciting part to me, usually because I don't know quite what's going to come out of it. And I love seeing how everything comes together afterwards. So usually the projects end up quite different visually than I planned for because I always discover new things when I'm in the field photographing. My latest project has been quite different because I've been working from a studio only, which is quite new to me. And I've been shooting and developing everything within the same 15 square meters of my studio space. So that means I've had the freedom to produce the work bit by bit and to experiment more on technical aspects of the photograph and to develop each photograph over a period of time. And I've been producing my last body of work, 31 indicative objects, in periods over the last year and a half, where each artwork has been based on the previous artwork. And a narrative comes together in a bit different way than how I've been used to work previously. And that also gives me the luxury to produce each print in different ways depending on the concept, and also it means I can tailor it more towards the exhibition space where I will be exhibiting it.
Marianne sarà ospite naturalmente, una delle fotografe della nostra mostra a Milano a settembre, Orientarsi con le stelle, promossa da Red Lab Gallery. Parliamo dei suoi ultimi lavori. In mostra ci saranno 3 diversi progetti di Marianne, selezionati in base al fil rouge di evocare quella che è un po' la sensazione di profondo e il senso del magico. Le ho chiesto di raccontarci qual è questo filo che lega quindi i 3 progetti che porterà a Milano e come è riuscita a restituire all'interno di questi una sensazione di misticismo.
Yeah, so to me there's a certain tension between science and photography, and also between reality and representation, as you mentioned with the mystic. So my own understanding of the world is independent of direct experience, and to a large extent leans on photographic documentation and representation. I mean, photography has the ability to make new realities visible to humans and parts of the world that previously has been out of reach for us, either because it's been too small, too large, or even because it's been too far away for us to see with the naked eye. So all of the 3 projects that we'll exhibit in Milan touches upon visibility and invisibility, and also the questioning of what is it that we're looking at. So one can perhaps envision visibility as something permanent and immutable, but at the same time the visible, that what is visible to us today has not always been visible to us. We have instruments such as telescopes, microscopes, x-rays, and of course the photograph. That has given us greater visibility and visualize things that otherwise would be impossible for us to see. What the 3 projects perhaps have in common is that they are touching upon the human need of measuring and categorizing. And this is an urge that has brought the development of photography continuously towards what we can see with our eyes. While at the same time the photograph is able to reveal more and more of what previously hasn't been visible for us. So this leads us towards an understanding of this full spectrum of photography. And in a way, I guess it gives us a foundation to understand the world as it is. So the globe pictures are one part of the 31 indicative object projects, which consist of, well, in the end, it will consist of 31 different artworks. At the moment, there is about 8 or 9. This was the very first story that was told. It was based on a story that happened in 1992, where a Russian astronauts went to the space station Mir to send up a solar sail to send it across Europe to extend the day hours. So they were making a fake sun to bring the light upon Europe so they can have longer days to work. So in the experiment in 1992, the solar sail did light up Europe for a whole 80 minutes as the satellite was traveling across. But then, of course, people were very scared that they couldn't see the stars anymore. So they decided not to go ahead with the project. But that was the starting point of the globe pictures. And I think it's an interesting story because it's part of the human need of changing what has already been set, but then also maybe the failure of doing so.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Come sai, stiamo dando vita a questo progetto che si chiama Orientarsi con le stelle. Abbiamo trovato e crediamo fortemente che nel rapporto cielo-terra, nel rapporto essere umano-stelle, ci sia una relazione. L'essere umano ha sempre guardato alle stelle per orientarsi nei suoi viaggi, ma anche soltanto per chiedere conforto nei momenti di bisogno. Oggi, forse più che mai in questo momento storico, come gli antichi, torniamo a mirare le stelle e a chiedere un consiglio alzando gli occhi al cielo. Ecco, come questa relazione rientra un po' nel suo concept e nel tuo modo di lavorare.
My interest in the universe and the sky is, of course, linked to photography. And it's linked to photography in the way that it works as a bridge between what we know and what we can experience physically as humans. So there's a whole world out there that is not visible to us because our eyes can only apprehend certain wavelengths. for example, is less than 0.1% of all registered stars in the world can be seen with our own eyes. So for me, there's a fascination connected to the fact I will never be able to see these detailed planets and galaxies with the naked eye. And I'm dependent on visual representation in order to understand how these places look like or may look like. So when I made the stardust photograms in one of my previous works, Your Penumbra, I placed stardust onto the photographic paper before exposing it in the darkroom. And I held the stardust in my hands, and I was thinking that this is the closest I would ever be to a star. And I feel that in the pictures, in some way, that translates the action to the audience in an exhibition. When people look at the images, they're only centimeters away from an actual star that is being presented onto the paper.
La quarantena ha reso insomma, un po' tutti chiusi in casa, il lockdown ci ha obbligato in qualche modo a restare nel nostro studio a casa. C'è qualche lavoro che Marianne vorrebbe raccontarci che è stato un tavolo per tanto tempo oppure qualche cosa di nuovo di cui ha voglia di aggiornarci?
Yeah, so these times has resulted in a lot of changes in my planned exhibition program, and it's been very unexpected, but it has been welcome too. So I've had a couple of larger exhibitions that has been postponed until 2021 or even 22. And all of a sudden I had a pocket of space for new production. So I've been researching for this one specific project for years, but I never found the right time or situation to start a production for this project. So I'm started working on this now over the summer. It's going to be a photo book where I'm investigating on how we perceive, interpret, and trust told history. So the project evolves around photography, representation, and is drawing upon the ways that we understand history and the means that we use to represent it. And it's going to show examples displaying dilemmas of photography, historical accounts, behavior, and chance. So the completed work in the end will display a vast archive of orchestrated photographs that illustrate events that shape the history as we know it, together with events that never actually happened. So the work will connect events related to failed experiments, force control, nuclear bombs, cosmic investigation, extinct animals. Yeah, so I will be working with this project for the next year. We'll also be developing a part of the book into a chapter for an exhibition next summer. And then I'm also working on 2 solo shows in 21 and 22. So it's of course very luxurious to have that much time to produce new work far ahead in the future. So that brings me opportunities to start totally new projects.
Okay. La seguiremo naturalmente perché ha questo progetto molto molto interessante. È una domanda l'ultima che faccio spesso ai fotografi che intervisto perché è una traccia di un libro formativo, comunque diciamo un elemento all'interno della vita di un fotografo che è stato formativo per la sua esperienza e per la sua professione.
Yes, so I would like to mention this really wonderful book, which is called Science of Sight, and it holds selected images from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. So it's images from their archive presented in a book. It's quite a recent book, actually. And through these images, we're witnessing a broad spectrum of photography in the way it's been used, and through the manifold ways that photography has been implemented as a means of observation, documentation, and transmission of information. So I love the pictures in the book. It shows the amazing, quirky, and interesting photographs connected to science throughout time. So of course, I feel it's very close to my own practice.
Yeah. È un libro insomma, particolare, quindi assolutamente di interesse anche trasversale. So, Marianne, grazie davvero per il tempo che ci hai dedicato e per questa intervista. See you in September in Milan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to September.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Goodbye.